Our first keynote is Sarah Arth. Sarah is the Vice President of Education and Diversity Programs at AdvaMed, also known as the Advanced Medical Technology Association. So anybody that's unfamiliar with AdvaMed, it's a trade association that leads the effort to advance medical technology in order to achieve healthier lives and healthier economies around the world. Over 400 members, 80 employees, a global presence in Europe, India, China, Brazil, and Japan. Their members range from the largest to the smallest medical technology innovators and companies. And the association acts as a common voice for companies producing medical devices, diagnostic products, and digital health technologies. So that's about AdvaMed, just for people on the line who don't know a lot about AdvaMed. But for Sarah herself, she's a visionary leader and innovator in the nonprofit sector. She's been in the sector for over 20 years, developing and managing education and healthcare foundation programs for mid-size and large trade organizations. I have to tell you that I looked at her LinkedIn profile and there was just something absolutely outstanding in it that I personally love this statement. She is mission-driven, sees around corners, and finds synergies for increasing outcomes and sustaining achievements. And I can personally attest to that after having just come back from AdvaMed. She is a force of nature and entirely successful and very supportive of diversity by doing so. Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you for that introduction, Ingrid. I appreciate it and hope that I live up to my introduction in the few minutes that I have to talk to everyone here. I also am honored to be here to talk to you today. I see a lot of AdvaMed members on the call and future AdvaMed members as well. And so what I thought I would do, I'm going to share slides in just a minute, but I thought what I could do is talk you through a little bit about how I got started in my career in associations, because anytime anyone asks you what that is, nobody really knows what you're talking about outside of the DC or really Chicago areas, and then talk through a little bit more about what AdvaMed does, and along the way, how mentorship has really impacted my career and brought me along through my various trade association experiences. So I am going to share my screen. I threw up a little slide so you don't have to look at me the entire time. Let me make sure that I can pull this here. And I entitled what I wanted to talk about is harnessing the power of connections. And it will all come full circle as I got to see Ingrid last week and a few other people on this call at AdvaMed's MedTech conference in Anaheim, California, Claudine as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did there and the opportunities to create programs. But I'm going to start with how I got started in working for associations. Somebody may wonder what the DC Metro logo has to do with the AdvaMed logo. I was about 22 years old, 2001, September 9th, 2001, and I moved to DC. My sister lived here. I was originally from Pennsylvania, had a job right out of college in sales. Wasn't necessarily my thing. So I up and moved to DC 2 days before 9/11. And so my job search somewhat got halted by the activities of 9/11 with all of the uncertainty. And I was on the Metro one day taking a ride to a placement agency, a headhunter, and I was sitting next to this woman who just started talking to me and asked me what I was doing. I gave her my history, told her I was, looking for a job in the DC area and very open. I have a business degree, marketing degree. I, don't have a lot of work experience, so pretty much am open to any opportunities. And she started talking to me about associations. And I didn't really know what that was or what it meant, but she's like, this area is rich and loaded with associations. They have great benefits. You can work for a mission. They're great places to work. So I went on to the interview I had with the placement agency, and they told me that they have a great employer called the National Association of Chain Drugstores. And I was like, what is that? It sounds kind of boring. But they assured me it was a great place to work, had good benefits, had good mission-driven work. And so I went on an interview and I got a position entry level as a coordinator in the pharmacy education department at the National Association of Chain Drugstores. And what my role was and what it started out was really supporting administratively the educational programs that the organization designed for its members, most of which are practicing pharmacists who are dealing with patients every day, who are giving them their vaccinations, who are filling their scripts, who are providing counseling, and all of those programs. And she was right. It was a great place to work. It had a great mission to really be able to provide accessible medicines to all the populations throughout the US. And I ended up spending 9.5 years working at the National Association of Chain Drugstores. I started working in education, and then ultimately I took over their nonprofit arm and ran that, which is a 501c3. So that part of the organization was responsible for education, charitable giving, and student scholarships. So I got to work a lot developing programs that kind of spanned the industry, from those looking to get into pharmacy, for those that needed professional education to keep up their requirements depending on the states they live in. And after about 9.5 years, I decided it was time for a change. I moved on to the Biotech Trade Association, and there I worked on similar programs. I created education for what is called the Bio International Convention. It's a conference of 20,000 biotech executives and people within the biotech industry looking to partner to create medications, treatments for people to really extend lives, if you're looking at ultimately what their mission and vision are. So I spent 10 years there, or 11 years there, worked there through the pandemic, which was an interesting time to work for the biotech industry, and got to a lot of exposure and got to interact with a lot of amazing people. But about halfway through my time there, the industry decided it was time to recognize the problems that they have as a workforce and a lack of diversity as part of the industry. And one of the programs that I got to start working on was inclusion and diversity for the biotech industry. So we started there with surveying and then creating more and more programs that created conversations around inclusion and diversity in the biotech industry. It is at that organization where I met AdvaMed CEO, Scott Whitaker, who also worked in the biotech industry. And about 18 months ago, the AdvaMed called me up and let me know that they have a job here, that they wanted to focus it on education and diversity programs for the med tech industry. And I came on over because who couldn't resist a mission of working on an industry who's really working to create technologies to make people's lives better, and really create access for patients. And so I joined this organization. I oversee education for our conferences and educational events, and I oversee our diversity programs as well. And I'm going to get into what those are in a few minutes, and also talk about how mentorship has led me to where I am. But I did want to give you kind of a primer on what associations are if you're not that familiar with it, and what kind of career opportunities exist. But associations are mission-driven nonprofit organizations committed to making the world safer, smarter, and better by serving the professionals and industries they represent. There is typically an association for everything. There is an association for candy manufacturers. There is an association for plastic manufacturers. There is an association, I'm sure, for dog walkers. There is an association for everything. And a lot of them are located in the DC area, because it's very convenient to Capitol Hill, and a lot of associations are lobbying for their constituencies. There's various different positions within the organization, from executive leadership to IT functions to government relations to really helping formulate policy for an industry, down to education and training, which is part of what I do, and events. I would also say a new role that's been created within associations in the last 5 to 6 years has been inclusion and diversity. I think we can see that throughout really the business continuum, but that is a role that you're seeing more and more. And I'm happy that AdvaMed recognized it's important to have people working on these initiatives full time, and hence they brought me on board to do some of this work. There's different types of associations. There's trade associations. looking at AdvaMed, we're a trade association, so companies are our members. Medical device and medical technology companies, digital health companies are our members. Professional associations are individual memberships. So sometimes, like the AMA, the American Medical Association, physicians are members of that as opposed to the organization in which they work for. They operate a little bit differently, but again, they all do very similar work in convening, creating conferences, policy work to create a more favorable environment for people to do business or create technologies in the case of AdvaMed. So they're very similar. One's just representing companies in the industry, one's just representing the people. And then a little bit about AdvaMed, and then I'm going to kind of go into some mentoring moments and why and how they've impacted my career. Ingrid covered a lot of this at the beginning, but we are the world's largest medical technology trade organization. Our mission and our passion is really to create a favorable environment to develop technologies that advance patient access to these technologies. We have over 470 members, I think really close to 500. And we represent all sectors of medtech, from the diagnostics to the digital health to down to the cardiovascular, orthopedics, surgical tools, wound management, the robotic surgeries, and I could go on and on and on. A lot of companies which are represented here. A core of what we do is work on policy and regulation, as well as trade issues that really are going to affect your ability to do business and really get at the core of what you're trying to do as a company. And then we convene. We create conferences and events that bring people together, that create partnerships in order to really advance technology and advance the industry for the betterment of patients. So within that, and what I get to do, and why I have a picture of Ginny Romedy up here, is I've been affected by a lot of different people through my career in a lot of different ways. That woman on the metro was just a fortuitous connection that she said hello, I engaged in a conversation, she opened my eyes to a whole new world that I never knew existed at 23 years of age, that led me to, 3 different careers in 3 healthcare industries that I think have been completely fulfilling because they're mission driven. At every one of those organizations, I have worked with a mentor in very different areas from what I do, and really utilize those relationships and connections to ultimately help me advance in my career and provide me guidance and input that is helpful to see from a third perspective, than a perspective other than yourself. And so last week I had the honor of having Ginny Romedy, who is the former CEO of IBM and really a trailblazer in what she does, as a keynote speaker at the MedTech conference, which took place in Anaheim. And it was amazing to me to watch Ginny at the conference engage with every single attendee that came up to her and asked for a moment of her time. And I think being able to share your expertise, whether it's from a mentee or mentor side, is something that is really critical in stopping and making the time to do that. I've had lots of people do that for me in my career. And so at the point I am in my career, I am so excited to be able to give that back to people like you and people that I work with in the daily basis, or my nieces, my nephews, anyone that's looking for help. But I think that she set such a great example of mentorship and taking that time, no matter how busy she is, to pay attention to the questions that are important in helping people advance in their careers. So I just wanted to take a moment to point that out. And then I just have a few more slides on the fun aspects of my job and being able to create programs. You are fresh off of a great conference. We brought together 3,200 medical technology execs in Anaheim for the MedTech conference. Here you can see the CEO of Medtronic, Stryker, and Johnson & Johnson MedTech This was a keynote discussion we had. These are the things that I get to pull together, and these are the people that I get to work with on a daily basis in creating programs for the industry. What you don't see in this picture is the room that was set for 1,400 people and was standing room only, because everyone wanted to hear what these powerful influencers and powerful leaders of their organizations were saying about the industry and the future of healthcare, and how we can all work together to improve healthcare for this country and really around the world. And then there's this. This is the highlight of the MedTech conference for me last week. This year we put together what we called Student Hub, and we had over 150 students throughout the country, throughout Southern California, and we put together a program for them. We partnered with Diversity by Doing and 8 other organizations to make sure that as an industry, we're exposing these opportunities to students, to the future workforce, to people that are interested in the careers and opportunities in MedTech. And we didn't know what it was going to turn into when we started it. We started talking to Ingrid. She put us in touch with somebody at UC Irvine, and we continued that train of connections by having conversations with people we know. And it ended up that we brought 150 students. They participated throughout the week. They had a hub on what we call our exhibit hall floor, where they could meet and be educated and hear about different career opportunities, get connected to CEOs in the industry, and really just learn and connect in the MedTech issues. So I wanted to throw in a couple of pictures here just so you can see. This is a bigger picture of the group, and that's my colleague Sarah, who really managed the day-to-day. But these are the things that we got to experience last week, and really ultimately drive home the reason that I do what I do every day, is to be able to create programs for the future and make sure that this industry is vibrant and strong and diverse as we move forward. So that's how I'm going to wrap it up, because I know I'm at time. But I'm also just going to say we are always going to welcome students. And so I just threw in my save the date, because we'll all be in Toronto in 2024, and hope to see a lot of you there. I had to put a quick plug in there, Ingrid, but I appreciate the time, and I look forward to the one-on-one conversations. Thank you.